This is north-central Namibia, characterized by its sandy plains dotted with palm trees, its semi-arid climate, and the Ovambo people, who have a long history of cultivating the land. As the warm rainy season comes to an end and winter approaches, it comes time to harvest millet. I spent some time at a homestead helping out, learning how they grow, store, and process the grain, and how they manage the fields. This video is part of Floral Morals, a project that explores the plant kingdom in all its aspects. In this episode, we will look at traditional Ovambo agriculture through the lens of Mahangu, their word for pearl millet, and the staple crop of the region, and how farming of this crop connects plants and people. Grains, the seeds of various grasses, have built the human world as we know it. Each cradle of civilization had its staple: wheat in the Middle East, rice in East Asia, maize in Mesoamerica and the Andes. Pearl millet's botanical name is Pennisetum glaucum. Penna meaning feather, and seta meaning bristle, the name referring to the feathery bristles on the flower spikes of these grasses, and glaucum referring to the bluish-gray color of the seed heads. According to Oxford Academic, its cultivation began in the Sahel, a band of semi-arid land just south of the Sahara, over 4,500 years ago. It thrives in the sandy soils of arid tropical regions throughout Africa and South Asia. Here in northern Namibia and southern Angola, it's known in the Ovambo language as Mahangu. It's hard to overstate how central Mahangu is to life here. Namibia is one of the driest countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Only about 1% of the land is considered arable. Most communities turn to pastoralism, herding goats, cattle, or sheep as a way of life. But the Ovambo people, the largest of the 11 distinct ethnic groups in Namibia, live in the Cuvée-Lai Basin, a landscape shaped by ephemeral waterways that spill down from Angola during the rainy season. From November through April, the land holds water just long enough to grow food. That's when Mahangu is planted. It's a highly nutritious grain. 100 grams of flour contains 12 grams of protein, rich in B vitamins, iron, magnesium, and zinc. But nutrition aside, what stands out is its place in the rhythm of daily life. The flour becomes oshifima, a thick porridge, eaten with greens, beans, or meat. Oshikundu is a popular fermented drink also made from Mahangu. The fermentation process transforms the sugars into lactic acid, giving it a light sourness. Sweetened with a bit of cane sugar, it ends up tasting something like a probiotic lemonade. I think about how every region has its grain, how something so small, a seed, a grass, can shape life. For the Ovambo, Mahangu is not just sustenance. It's memory, tradition, connection to the land. It's survival, passed down. Hello. Seed sowing begins with the rain. After months of heat and dryness, from August through November, December brings the first meaningful showers. By late January or early February, there's nearly a 40% chance of rain on any given day. Most families sow their seeds in December or January, depending on how the season unfolds. Mahangu takes about 60 to 70 days to flower. The flowers need pollinated, which typically happens from wind. Insect pollination does occur, though. Pearl millet pollen is actually great forage for pollinators, including honeybees. After pollination, it takes another 30 days for the seeds to mature. That's nearly a 3-month growing cycle. Timing is everything. Sow too early and the seedlings might wither. Too late and they won't mature before the rains disappear. Fields are still often prepared by hand. While tractors are more common now, they're usually just for initial clearing of the fields or plowing. More often, it's donkeys, still the most widely available draft animals, that help with the heavy work. But sowing, weeding, harvesting, winnowing, and pounding the grain is all still done by hand. These fields are not monocultures. They parallel the three sisters of indigenous American agriculture: maize, beans, and squash, crops that grow together and support one another, both nutritionally and in the field. Maize is a source of carbs and a trellis for the beans. Beans, a source of protein, fixing nitrogen in the soil. Squash, a great source of micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals. Their wide leaves and trailing growth habit outcompeting weeds and shading the ground, keeping moisture from evaporating. Ovambo fields follow a similar logic. You'll find Bambara groundnut, or A. fukwa, planted alongside Mahangu. It's a protein-rich legume with nutty flavor, and like beans, it enriches the soil with nitrogen. Bambara groundnut was also originally cultivated in the Sahel, and has long been a growing companion of Mahangu. Beans, omakunde, are a favorite snack, and are often ground into oshingali, a creamy, hummus-like dish. These account for the legumes, Fabaceae. Then there are the cucurbits. Often planted along fences, one finds the vining summer squash, E. tila. Boiled whole in salt water, they make a delicious side dish. Pumpkins, omanyangwa, and large melons, called omingongo, creep across the field floor. The flesh of omingongo isn't as sweet as dessert melons. Instead, it's mixed with mahangu flour to flavor the staple porridge, oshifima. Smaller jelly melons with cucumber-like flavor dot the edges. Of course, mahangu is the primary grain, the poaceae of the field, but you also find sorghum, ilyavala, and small plots of maize, omapungu. Maize often needs irrigation here, but in the wetter north you still see it. Once the seeds are in, it's time for weeding. Done by hand with a hoe, the work is hard, but the sandy soils make it more manageable than in clay-heavy regions. Weeding is crucial. The crops need a head start over any wild grasses or forbs. And then comes harvest. Grain heads are cut with sickles or knives and gathered into heaps. At day's end, they're brought to the oshipale, a raised, woven structure made of logs, mahangu stalks, and palm fronds, where the grain dries under the sun. Next is threshing, winnowing, separating seeds from the chaff. It's done by pounding the seed heads and letting the wind blow the debris away. It's slow work, but life moves differently here. The grains are soaked in water left out in the sun, which begins a natural fermentation and malting process. After a few days, they're dried again, then pounded, often in pits lined with clay dung from towering termite mounds that mark the landscape. After all this, you finally have the life-giving mahangu flower. Before I end the video, I want to discuss some of the other wild plants growing in and around the fields. They add to the complexity of these systems, benefiting the soil, and in some cases, directly supplementing the harvest with fruits, greens, or medicine. And they bring their own character and beauty to the landscape. Of course, the focus of these cultivated fields is the target crops: millet, groundnuts, melons, but they aren't completely closed systems. There are always other species present, even some intentionally left. Often directly adjacent to homesteads, you can find massive Sclerocarya burrea, commonly known as marula, or amuongo in Oshiwambo, and Ficus sycamoris, the sycamore fig, or amukuyu. A sycamore fig can easily have a trunk diameter of 2 meters, around 6.5 feet, and a canopy that spreads 45 meters, or 150 feet. Well-placed marula or sycamore fig trees can help significantly cool the area, and both produce tasty, edible fruits. The seed of the marula is edible, a sweet, fatty treat. It's also pressed for a high-value oil known as onjove. Slightly smaller than marula and sycamore fig are Diospyros mespiliformes, jackalberry, or amwandi, a type of wild persimmon, and Berchemia discolor, or bird plum, known locally as amuve. Both produce fruits that are commonly dried and sold in markets. Smaller mimosoids, a subfamily of the legume family Fabaceae found in tropical and subtropical regions, can be found left growing both in tree lines and even directly in the field. These species don't grow to the size of the larger trees, and with their lacy, diminutive leaflets, the shade they provide is more scattered than the dense cover of broad-leaved trees. This allows crops to grow underneath while offering a cool resting spot when working in the field. As legumes, they fix nitrogen in the soil. Some species, like acacia or Vachelia areoloba, camelthorn, or omuthia, have taproots that can extend 60 meters, or nearly 200 feet underground. They tap into water and nutrients deep below the surface, returning them to the topsoil through their fallen leaves, pods, and branches. Other species include Albizia anthelmintica, wormcure, or omupopo, which gets its name from its ability to kill parasitic worms. Now, on my way to Namibia, back in early January, I stopped in the Czech Republic. While there, I visited a national botanical gardens, yes, in the middle of winter. I learned that several native wildflowers used to be common weeds in the grain fields there, species well adapted to disturbed soils rich in organic matter. Showy flowers like cornflower, Centaurea cyanus, and corn poppy, Papaver roeus, were once so widespread that corn, meaning grain, became part of their name. And FYI for my American viewers, corn in this context just refers to cereal grains in general. But with the advent of herbicide, industrial agriculture became what I'd call overefficient, and these once common species have seen major population declines. I'd like to share several wildflowers that still thrive in the Mahangu fields here. Elangia misera produces flowers with such deep indigo color it almost hurts the eyes. Her persium has vibrant yellow rays. When blooming alongside Erlangia, the contrast of yellow and purple reminds me of the goldenrods and asters back home in Ohio. Hermstacia is a wild coxcomb flower. White wisps with bright fuchsia-colored tips make it resemble an animal's tail, earning it the name Eschila lodi, or sheep's tail in Ovambo. Helichrysum may be easy to miss. It stays low to the ground and is smaller than the others. The leaves are a soft, silvery green, covered in fine hairs that help the plant retain moisture. Its flowers are small and papery, clustered at the top of each stem. They start with a pink-red center, and as they mature, the red fades into a pale yellow or cream, blending into the background. I also wonder, if modern weed suppression methods like herbicide were introduced to small-scale agriculture here, would it have a similar effect on these species? There's a lot more to say about the wild indigenous plants here, their uses, their relationships, their role in these systems, and the ecology abroad. But that's a story for another episode. What started as a closer look at a grain, Mahangu, ends up being a window into something much bigger, a living system where people, plants, and place are tightly woven. It's taken thousands of years for these food systems to become what they are today. And while industrial agriculture may represent one possible outcome, a system focused on yield and efficiency, it's not the only path. Here in northern Namibia, agriculture still feels like part of the landscape. I don't have all the answers, but I want to keep asking these questions. In future episodes, I'll explore more wild and cultivated plants, how they're used, their roles in the ecosystem, and how they reflect the culture that tends to them. If that sounds like something you'd like to explore with me, consider subscribing to Floral Morals. And if you're already following along, thank you. There's a lot more to come.